Alrighty, everybody, welcome to Casual Sports Talk Podcast, Super Bowl Contenders edition. And now we got a gentleman right over here who's hoping that we don't have an argument just unlike last year when the Super Bowl Contenders. Here's Douglas.
So I enjoyed the argument last year because ultimately Philadelphia looked awesome. I have a feeling that we're all going to go with the same team on this one. Every expert I've seen has picked the same team, so it'll be kind of fun to see if anybody's leaning towards Mr. Drake May there.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's going to be an interesting one indeed right over here. And now we got a gentleman right over here who still realizes, what is a Super Bowl? Here's Chris.
What is a Super Bowl? Because the Browns don't make it? Is that what we're doing on?
Yeah.
I mean, I know what a Super Bowl is. I mean, it doesn't matter if my team makes it or not, but let's go Seahawks.
Yes, we'll go Seahawks. We'll go Patriots. So this is an interesting one, gentlemen. So we're going to make it interesting. So usually we do our recaps and talk about all of this. But I guess we'll start right over here. Are you surprised that these two teams made it to the Super Bowl in the end of the day?
I mean, I guess from what point? Because at the start of the season, absolutely. About week 8 or 9, not at all. Like, these two teams seemed like... So it depends on when you're asking me from. Because, yes, at some points, but no, they looked like contenders pretty much the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plus, Stuart, last week you said that we were very pessimistic or not too optimistic about the Patriots at the beginning of the season. I think we all gave them, I think Doug gave them a 4. Stuart, you and I gave them a 3. So yeah, and now the Patriots are in the Super Bowl. And then and then in the FC West, they've always been a tough division. Did we think the Seahawks were going to make it before the season started? Probably not. But yeah, Sam Darnold coming from Minnesota, he really turned on the Jets and looking good for the Hawks.
Well, I just have to think about how much it would suck to be a Bills fan. It's like you have to endure 20 years of this. You think you have your window, and then the Patriots we're going to take this over again.
It's going to suck if they win another Super Bowl. If you're a Bills fan, because it's like, we fucking got Josh Allen. And then Drake May says, hold my Lombardis. I will show you. I will get you a ring.
Well, that's the nice thing is I think either way, this is an amazing story. So this is the happiest I felt for a Super Bowl in a minute where I'm like, okay, either team I'd be genuinely happy for. It's like, granted, the Patriots had a dynasty, but that was already 7 years ago or so.
Yes, and I think we can probably start out with the story time right over here in this one where we got two teams. And I think we got to go back to that Super Bowl in February 1st of 2015. That Super Bowl when it was the New England Patriots versus the Seattle Seahawks. The last time these two teams faced against each other. And that one play where they decided to not give Marshall the ball and they started to do the pass play. Though I did agree, 9 times out of 10, they probably would have made a touchdown. But then it gets intercepted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's crazy is going into the fourth quarter, Seattle was up 24-14. And then, obviously, you had the stop, the interception on the 1 yard line or the goal line. But yeah, for the Patriots to score 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, that was impressive.
Yes. I mean, and that pretty much, thank you, Malcolm Butler, for doing that pass right over there. And it pretty much began the dynasty of the 2010s. We thought the dynasty was over for the Patriots, but then they were like, nope, it's just a 9-year pause. We're coming back. And it ended the dynasty of the Seattle Seahawks. After that Super Bowl, I'm sorry, Pete Carroll, he was a great coach, but they kind of became irrelevant after that. And you have the Patriots that were just being dominant, winning Super Bowls. Super Bowl 2016, they won the Super Bowl 20-3 comeback. They win it with the Rams. 3 Super Bowls. Brady's a GOAT. Belichick got 6 Lombardis, even though, granted, he did not become a Hall of Famer this year, funny enough. But we digress. But we have the end of the empire. 2020, a terrible year right over here, besides the pandemic, unless you're a Patriots fan, because Tom Brady leaves to New England after 20 seasons and joins the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and wins a Super Bowl first season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was not good. But for the Patriots, the post-Patriots onward, 2020, disaster. They went, I believe, 7-10. Didn't do great. Cam Newton was kind of not that great of a quarterback on that season. I do feel bad for Cam Newton. I wish he had a better career. They do make it to one playoff appearance, but the Buffalo Bills decided, I want to beat up on Big Brother and curb stomp them by 30 points. And then they have mediocre to bad football. It's just bad offensive stability. Mac Jones did not look great right over there. Belichick was not on the side. You know, I mean, it kind of feels like when a company, you know, when you're not happy with the managers, but you're all getting raises and everyone's getting happy, and then they decided, nope, the company goes under, and everyone's not happy, and everyone was blaming Belichick at that point.
Well, it's kind of hard because, I mean, eventually coach, like, it catches up to everybody, you know? Like, you can be an amazing coach, but eventually the game evolves past you, I think. And like, that's what happened to Pete Carroll. That's what happened to Bill Belichick, where it's like two of the best coaches of their respective generations. But there's a reason that, you know, a lot of teams are going to these younger coaches. The Bills just hired a 36-year-old. Mike McDonald's in his 30s. Sean McVay and all these other guys are like very young, offensive-minded coaches that are the most successful right now. So it's a new wave of coaching.
Yes. And I do feel like it is the end of the era right here. It was the end of the Belichick. You know, Brady era basically ended one part. Then you kind of have the fall of Bill Belichick right over there. Granted, he did go to that 1 year in Carolina, but, you know, North Carolina State in college, and that was a complete disaster. But we won't talk about that.
I mean, he's still there. He's doing it again.
Complete disaster, just saying. Just saying. I'm not wrong on that one. But it's like, you know, and then 2023 is an interesting year. It's the end of the Belichick. They decide, goodbye. Our first year in our podcast, Bill Belichick they decide to fire Bill Belichick after 23 years being part of the Patriots. It's the end of the Patriots era. We're thinking it's over. We thought 2020 this is it. 2023, that was the death nail on that one. And then they try to have a first reset with Gerard Mayo, former Patriot. They thought this could work, but roster wasn't ready. Offense was broken. Results were bad, mediocre. Fired after 1 year, Gerard Mayo. They were just like one and done. And they were like, never again. But then
I mean, I think too, though, it's because Vrabel is available. Like, I don't think it was, looking back, I don't think it was just because he didn't do good. I think it's also like kind of like the Giants with Harbaugh, where it's like when you have a premier coach that's a Super Bowl like caliber coach, sometimes you have to make a tough decision. And, you know, the teams that do win, both of these teams made really tough decisions in the last 2 years that were amazing for them with their quarterback and coaching situations.
Yes. And I mean, granted, I do probably agree. I think he was probably a patsy for getting Mike Vrabel. But we will talk about the entering of Mike Vrabel. You know, they do get Drake May in this one. And everyone's kind of like, oh, we'll see how it goes. He's from North Carolina. I don't know. We'll see. But then they hire Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel's story is pretty much interesting. He worked for he was part of the Tennessee Titans, but they never really got to that super hump right over here. And unfortunately, after 5 years, they were just like, I think Mike Vrabel micromanaged the team, and they just said, Tennessee, they said, bye-bye, we want you gone. And they actually been worse ever since. Let's be honest. Brian Callahan is a total fraud as a coach.
Well, yeah, I mean, they went from one seed with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown to getting rid of both of them. And, you know, like, you're going to be worse when you lose Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown for sure.
Yes. So that's pretty much this year. And then they decide to hire Mike Vrabel. And that's pretty much the story of the New England Patriots of the last 5 years. It's just been mediocre, mid, bad, and god-awful. Like bottom five. I think last year we gave a eulogy. Like they were the first 5 teams that were eliminated. They were it was like we were just laughing like we don't feel sorry for you.
Mm-hmm.
And now we got to talk about the other failures of the other teams. The Seattle Seahawks. After that Super Bowl, they had that one Super Bowl win, then they had that loss. And unlike the Patriots where they had a dynasty afterwards, it was just decline. They didn't do as well. No returning Super Bowls after that. Defense aged out and leave. People were leaving. Marshawn left. Richard Sherman was left. Russell Wilson kind of got a little bit stale and kind of got a little bit not as great, unfortunately.
Well, I think the trade that they made, getting rid of him, was part of the reason that they're here today, too. Because I feel like they got a couple of first-round draft picks, and they got some really nice stuff back for him that has now led to this elite defense and these playmakers that they currently have.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, but first they thought Geno Smith was the guy. This is the man right over here. This is the person that's going to achieve us. Stutter. But he was also not elite, not getting that Super Bowl ceiling quarterback. Not truly Seattle. They're running around at 500. There was a couple years where they just went 7-9, 7-10, 8-9. They weren't really a real threat. Nobody really thought that Geno Smith was a real threat right over here. And then also, people were getting frustrated with Pete Carroll at this point. People were thinking, man, this guy can't do it. This guy can't do it. It's the same problem with Belichick, but without those Lombardis. It's just felt like a man that was been there way too long. He was a great coach, but the new bloods needed. We need new blood right over here. So 2023, the same year that Belichick leaves, Seattle fires Pete Carroll right over here. And don't get me started that Pete Carroll became a Raider and that one was awful. And then he got fired after 1 year.
He did. I think one of the biggest things for both of these is and the Gerard Mayo one, they were talking about how soft the team played under him for that season. And Pete Carroll was such a player's coach, where Mike McDonald came in and he's like, y'all are going to keep running until I basically say so. We're going to have toughness and we are going to be in amazing shape. And you can just tell with how they play that they are so well coached and well disciplined that it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and it's interesting. What really helped was Mike McDaniel. I think that was definitely the good strat. Mike McDaniel really does good well. First year, Mike McDaniel, they go 10-7. They do not make it to the playoffs, but that's a good start right over here. But they kind of realized Geno Smith is not going to get us to the promised land. 10-7 is not good enough.
Well, so here's the thing, though, because I did hear that they wanted Geno Smith still, but Geno kind of turned down their offer, and then they're like, well, so you can go take your offer in Vegas, and we'll go get our boy Sammy Darnold. But Sam Darnold wasn't their first choice, per se. They wanted Geno. But then the way that they treat the quarterback position, I was reading an article on this, is basically the rest of our team is so darn good, just give us an average quarterback, and we'll be really good. And here we are.
Here you are. And this really changes. And it's interesting for Sam Darnold's identity. Gets drafted in the Jets and was a freaking disaster. 3 years, did nothing. Went to Carolina, disaster. I think people probably, it's kind of funny. I did not look it up, but I bet you when Tree probably did his addendum on the 2018 draft, you probably put Sam Darnold as a bust.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Nobody thought that this man was, people thought he was just washed up and backup. Granted, he did make it as a Super Bowl as a backup to Brock Purdy.
He did, and he's also made 2 Super Bowls before Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. So
yeah, that is kind of funny. But he he played a couple games, and I think what the turnaround was Minnesota.
And
Minnesota was basically the one that changed his resurgence, because JJ McCarthy was going to get hurt. They were not going to put Sam Darnold in that game. They were going to let JJ be the starter, and JJ gets hurt. And then they decided, okay, we'll just put in Sam Darnold right here. And they look amazing. This revitalized it. Probably was the comeback player of the year, in my opinion. Literally goes 14-3, does really well, but unfortunately has 2 ugly losses. One was against the Lions, and the other one was against the Rams. And that broke them, man. You lost badly to Lions, and then you lost badly to the Rammies on that one. And that ends the preseason right over here. But now we got to talk about the preseason, interesting trees. They're going to get rid of rumors certain around DK Metcalf right over here. Big picture, both teams. Patriots, empire collapse, hard reset. Seahawks, peak, plateau, and then on a drift right over here. That is basically the three things when you get right over here. And we'll see how it goes right over here on this part. And now we're going to get to the part where Tree's prediction. We talked about the New England Patriots failed miserably. He felt like this team is a rebuilding phase. He felt like that it's just a boys' club right here. When Josh McSnake Oil gets back as offensive coordinator, that's a major upgrade. It's a massive upgrade. That's bad. It's evolving. Can Drake May do something? But Mike Vrabel too, because like I said, Mike Vrabel left because he pretty much micromanaged the team. How are you going to do with Stephon Diggs with a torn ACL? You're kind of like in this one. Draft pick. Will it be a disaster like 2022? Could they be better than 2024? Can they do the job? So it's just kind of like, eh. And funny enough, Tree did not pick this team to make the postseason. They did not pick the postseason. It was not the New England Patriots right over here. We were very much not. I was not fair. I like Drake May. I thought there's improvements, but there's been no. But I said about Mike Vrabel, no Super Bowl appearances, no Lombardis, no rebuilding. This team is fragile. I gave a 4-13. I gave a 2 bottom team right over here. No playoffs right over here. Christopher said they were 4-13 last year. If Drake May gets hurt, they're deeply bad. They're in a bad spot. An aging Stephon Diggs, confusing wide receivers, bad offensive line. The season might be Trayvon Henderson. Actually, it was with that kick return, but we'll see. Also gave him a 14-3. How do you feel about that? Likely to get a top 5 draft pick. That was your pick, your prediction. Douglas was you were actually more optimistic. You thought this Drake May guy could be good after week 2. Slightly improvement, rookie potential, culture reset by Mike Vrabel. You liked Mike Vrabel right over here.
Thank you.
Also helps playing the Jets twice because they suck. And they thought that, maybe they could have a shot and maybe doing a little bit better. But you said no postseason.
No.
You said 6-11. You gave them the 4.
When you're playing against the Bills and Josh Allen, and then we thought the Dolphins would be better this year, I think we all were pretty high on the Dolphins for some reason.
Yes.
Seems like we're always high on the Dolphins. I remember, obviously this year we thought the Dolphins were probably gonna make the playoffs, but I remember last year, I don't know if you guys were, but I was riding high on the Dolphins. But yeah, like I always say, the Dolphins have the stars, but they just can't get it done. But oh well, back to the Patriots.
Back to the Patriots. And yeah, gentlemen, it's so funny that we were so pessimistic. No, I don't think anybody, unless you're a hardcore Patriots fan, was picking this team to make a postseason.
Yeah, I would venture to say most realistic Patriots fans there's potential. Give us a couple of years and we'll be there.
Yeah, I think honestly that's the same thing. And I feel like it's the same way when we talked about the Seattle Seahawks right over here, where we were just like, where Tree basically talked about the moment there was a lifeless end of the Pete Carroll era, which I totally agree. They were kind of like there. But their offseason are baffling right over here. Geno Smith era ends early. He's decent, but you never take them to the promised land. And why would you know the promised land? Sam Darnold is still a sizable stop-go, but he's ultimately a mass solution. But hey, remember the last time they splurged on anyone like this? Russell Wilson came out of nowhere, and they extremely got lucky. Why can't they lightning strike twice on Jalen Milrose? That's what everyone was thinking right there. But you had to pay the price for Tyler Lockett. And you even got out of the vending machine of Marcus Lawrence and Cooper Kupp's minor consolation prize. Now it's Mike McDaniels to make the machine work. Can they do well?
I think it's Mike McDonald.
Sorry, Mike McDonald.
Mike McDaniel was the Dolphins.
McDonald, love it. Sorry. But yeah, I feel like, we were I think Tree was kind of thinking the same way. Did not pick them to make the postseason right over here. Said no postseason right there. They thought maybe they could be the same go. Maybe there could be hope. But they were kind of like, in this spot, in this one. And interestingly enough, when we talk about our predictions, we were kind of like, We gave him a 6-11. It was a step backwards, but I felt like Darnold could be a downgrade. I was a little bit worried about what was going to happen because of that Minnesota game, and I was just like, in that one. Douglas, you were very much so. You gave him 6-11. We gave him all fours: 6-11, 6-11. Doesn't trust the quarterback switch. Offense is too thin. You said the culture is nice, but the talent loss per QB uncertainty equals regression.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all were based on that last couple weeks of Sam Darnold. The loss of DK Metcalf certainly loomed large, where we didn't think JSN would be a superstar that quickly. That was pretty cool.
Dude, can you imagine
Yeah,
if DK would stayed in Seattle, DK and JSN? That'd be nuts.
that would be nuts in this one, indeed. And now, that is pretty much it for the preseason. Now we're going to talk about week 1, where we talked about the Patriots and Raiders, where it was not a great game. The New England Patriots lost to the Las Vegas Raiders. Surprisingly, they went 20-3. It was not a great game right over here. Brady returned home. But Belichick, this is kind of the fun week where basically Belichick decided they can't allow any Patriots people in the Carolina headquarters in that one. Like they felt like Tree made a joke that basically said, is Drake May just turning into the next Mac Jones in the Costin cesspool right now over there? Like, this is the second one. Patriots fans said that they resurge under Mike Rabel, but they're doing the same old shit. Get the fuck together, boys. That's what he said. He was not happy about this one right over here. Felt like nothing has changed right over here. And for me, I gave him a 2. Not angry, but not impressed. Felt like this team is the most forgettable team in the league. You lost by 7 to a mid Raiders team. What am I supposed to be excited about? That's what I said. So no bumps, no nothing. Christopher said, also gave him a 2. See no reason to move them up. Lost confidence preseason. No running game. No offensive identity. Choose losses that count, that keep stacking up. And Douglas gave him a 4. He likes what he's seen from Drake May. Believes Mike Rabel will establish an identity and thinks they can win some games eventually. But even he had to walk back, Douglas. You gave him a 3. You dropped him down. But Doug's final words was, I still believe in Drake May, but I just don't believe in the team yet.
See, and honestly, after seeing their playoff performance and their schedule, I don't, and this is where I feel like a hater, because maybe I am, but it's you played the 10th easiest schedule in NFL history. You played a team with their top 2 wide receivers and a quarterback hurt. You played a backup quarterback. And who else did they play? The other one too. They played a bunch of injured teams in the playoffs as well.
And the Ravens just sucked.
So it's if they can beat the Seahawks, it's all legitimate and all is forgotten. But it's if you play the top defense in the league, because Drake May has looked really bad against 3 top 7 defenses already, and Seattle's ranked number 1. So I'm is it real? Are they really good? Are they really good, or did they just play nobody? Because when they played good defenses, Drake May went from second QBR in the league to very, very average when he played real defenses.
Yes. But yeah, this is going to be the interesting part right over here. But another team got a loss also. The Seattle Seahawks. They said Christian McCaffrey, talked about this one. The Moody Blues right over here. Seattle can't capitalize on their offense because they lost to another team. They lost to the 49ers 17-13 in week 1. So both teams have a loss. They couldn't capitalize that. The Niners territory, they couldn't get further. Seattle is he said, is burnt out toast. How not fitting to show up of all time. Seattle and Sam Darnold have a chances. They're in the red zone. Their first game in the OC. 2nd and 4, drops back. Where is he going? Drop the ball. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not good. But their red zone was not great. 3rd downs were brutal. Turnovers were even. But the result was still a loss. I said for the Seattle Seahawks, they lost their identity. Nothing about this team feels identity. Competitive, but not convincing. They're losing to banged up 49ers team. I believe they were still injured at this point, if I remember correctly. I think they started out not great, if I remember that, which is still amazing to think about it. The 49ers made it to the postseason because they were injured to start of week 1 and they still made it to there. But I said Sam Darnold lost 3 straight games so far. I still had to give him a 4 because you know what? It was against the 49ers team. Douglas, keep you settled out there. A lot competitive. But doesn't reward losses. Doug's vibe, they didn't play terribly, but they didn't admit. Brock Purdy Banner showed up. George Kittle developed our dealing industry. Even with that, Seattle couldn't take that advantage. Christopher summed it up way. They're missing their identity. And so the final count for week 1, we gave them all 4s. So 4, 4, and 4. Didn't panic, wasn't optimistic, and wasn't confident on this one. Did you have any thoughts on this one?
Well, I know for me, I wasn't a believer until they won in Pittsburgh. So I don't remember what week that was, but I was like, they're still not there. And then they won pretty convincingly in Pittsburgh. I'm like, okay, they might be something.
Yes. And that's pretty much it for week 1. Week 2, the New England Patriots decide to go play against the Miami Dolphins. And granted, this is when we kind of realized the Dolphins were going to be ass. We were like, yeah, this team was going to be dog shit. You know, like that first loss, I was like, but they win this game 33-27. You know, meanwhile, Tree talked about that. Meanwhile, the offense looks humming like the Brady days. And even if it's not painful enough, Miami's glimmer of hope. They basically did not look good on this one. Tua did not look great. The Patriots literally beat a little crypto in the middle of Miami summer. It is over. DEFCON 0, basically. It is not great. And then this is also the game, funny enough, when Mike McDaniel said his beautiful words, to win games, you got to win games in this one. So if you remember that one when I sent you that video, that was from this game.
Who said that? The Miami coach said that?
The Miami coach.
The win game. I mean, that makes sense. A very logical statement.
You gotta win.
Very logical statement indeed. Very logical.
He's not wrong.
Yes. I mean, that is true. You got to win games to win games. But the Patriots didn't dominate. They didn't look overwhelmed. They just outlasted it a very much thing. This was more of I feel like this was not really a Patriots win. This is more of like, oh my God, the Dolphins look like dog shit right now. Like that's what I kind of feel like the narrative of for week 2 was in that week. But our takes were like, acknowledge that there was improvement, acknowledge the win matters, but I'm not overreaching. I bumped him up to 3. Douglas kept it on ground. You kept it at 3. You said the governments were competitive in week 1. They won week 2, but against a collapsing team. Rapel has had the better tools. Drake May is improving right over here. But this isn't the playoff team yet. And Christopher bumped him up to a 4. You were like impressed. You were like potential. They look functional. The Dolphins look worse than they expected. Drake May looks like the real QB. And Rabel is playing us a lot harder right over here. How do you feel about that, Christopher?
I mean, looking back at the stats, I don't know why. Like, I don't know if I really said that the Dolphins look like trash. I mean, Tua
they looked like shit. I remember.
Tua outperformed Drake May passing wise. I know Drake May had a rushing touchdown and 2 passing touchdowns, but Tua 315 passing yards and Drake May 230. But anyways,
yeah,
I'm so cool that I bumped him up from a 3 to a 4 from week 1 to week 2. So
yeah, I think also this was like when I think after week 1, when we watched the Dolphins, we're like, man, this team looks like they're gonna be shit. So I feel like that's why we're kind of like on that in the Dolphins. But with Seattle decided to go to Pittsburgh. They wanted to go get those Pittsburgh and beat them Steelers 31-17. And Tree pretty much talked about the entire first half implosion. Typical Pittsburgh bullshit. Sam Darnold is serving up interceptions like appetizers, but missing kicks like Jason Merrill. And they're passing back and forth like the Steelers 30. You don't deserve the blow up for nonsense. Somehow the Steelers were in the lead, but then they blew this game badly. And they were right over here. Meanwhile, Stan Darnold slightly went back to November again. Kenneth Walker had a good comeback. Nearly 400 yards allowed and 40 points surrounded to a back-to-back game. But hey, Seattle, at least you got your steel curtain. Eat shit. Now go back to the vision hunt. And as you meddle the vision you may be, you take the win and ride the momentum. So Tree was actually more optimistic on this one, actually, interestingly enough. He was very much like, man, okay, maybe there might be some potential in the Seattle team. And granted, he was probably upset because the Steelers looked like dog shit, as always. And then we talked about it, Christopher. We were like, how do you feel about Sam Darnold? Your Christopher Tate called an easy bump, emphasized win, road win, better performance all the while. Team looks steady than week 1. You bumped him up to the 5. Douglas, you were like, didn't overanalyze it, but you liked how the song did. They gave up only 17 points to the Steelers. Mattered with the steel curtains. Nice when defense plays pretty well. And you bumped him up to the 5. And my take was Seattle looks a lot more better. Sam Darnold looks a lot more confident now. And knowledge is, but I was kind of a little bit questioned. Is this going to be Minnesota Darnold, or is this going to turn out to be Jets era Darnold later on? And I had a clear statement right there. It's going to be from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold. I can see that's why it's an upgrade on that one. And your conclusion, is Sam Darnold perfect? No, but at least we're giving him a chance. And I bumped him up to the 5 right over here. So we all went up to 5s right over here. We all said we prefer Darnold over J.J. McCarthy at this moment. We would rather have Sam Darnold than Geno Smith at this moment. So it was like, man, this team is bumping up and being very, very competitive right over here. So do you have any thoughts, gentlemen, on that?
No, I mean, this is definitely where they started to feel like legit for sure, but no main thoughts.
Yeah, impressive that JSN over the first 2 weeks of the season, he had 124 receiving yards in week 1 and then 105 or 108 in week 2. So, man, I mean, obviously we know JSN finished number 2 overall receiving yards for the season. So, yeah, it's putting on an offensive battle for him.
Yes, it was an offensive battle in this one. And then speaking of the Patriots, they got to play against another team, the Steelers, which they lost this game 14-21. And they said Patriots fans are calling this team a playoff contender. What of the world? A decade ago, New England Patriots should absolutely dominate this yardboard, but they're controlling the field and hashes. So they kind of been struggling on this one. And yet the Patriots did everything in their power to sabotage themselves. They are purely slapstick comedy right over here. 5 turnovers right over there. Fresh over there. Handing Pittsburgh a Christmas gift. The Patriots handled the ball like they're during the American Revolution, and the British would have won in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, we mentioned the cupcake schedule earlier. Doug said the 10th easiest schedule in NFL history. And, when the Patriots lose, they go to 1-2 on the season, losing to the Steelers 21-14. That the Steelers are a tough team historically. It just shows that maybe the Patriots weren't ready for the playoffs. But back to you, Stu.
Yeah, back to you. So this was basically, they're kind of struggling in week 3. It's kind of funny to think about it. Like we were talking about their check and they were just kind of struggling right over there. Fun fact, Aaron Rodgers won the first game in a Patriot Stadium against the Patriots, first time in his career. But for me, I said not to panic, but not to hype. Last week I gave him a 3. I gave him a 3. I kept him at 3. I said they were close, but they looked sloppy. Losing to a fluke is more heartbreaking. I was not impressed, but not discouraged. Drake May looked okay, but not special yet. My summary, this team is kind of meh right now. Christopher, you kept him at the 4. You said they were competitive for 1 and 2 games. You talked about the soft schedule. You talked about Panthers, Saints, Titans, Brownies, and Falcons. In theory, they could go up to 6-3 or 5-3. Your stance was, I'm gladly keeping them at a 4. I see a path for them, a narrow. Douglas felt guarded. You kept on a 3. You acknowledge the progress. You seen that there's structures, but you're largest. Rabel was clearly improving the discipline and effect. Drake May looked developing, but this team needs to rebuild. Not a breakout. Keyline, they were not far off, but they're not there yet.
That's crazy that I mentioned the easy schedule ahead of them after week 3, because after their 1-2 start, after they lost to the Steelers, that's when they went on a 10-game winning streak. That's crazy.
Yes. And then they decided. Then we have the Seattle Seahawks, who decided to go against the Saints, and this one was an ass whooping. Was competitive for 2 weeks, but then basically 2 special teams, nearly 200 yards on production. This game was over in the first quarter. No drama, no fake comebacks, just execution. And honestly, this is the Seattle team I was expecting to see. Worthless piles of ass across the field and ground. And yet the Seattle team exactly what it's supposed to do on a cupcake opponent. Smash them into a piece of one half. For this team, they can usually live and die in cardiac arrest. But you felt like this is the fans. No stress, no nonsense. Just straight up kills. Decisive wins right over here. And in my take, I gave another 5. I felt like this team is more how bad the Saints are than how elite Seattle is. I felt like they beat a high school Division A2 school. You're not punishing Seattle, but they're just not overrated. Jackson Smith and Jigma showed up. Shout out to him. He looked good. Bottom line, good win. But what are you supposed to do? I'm not moving them yet. Douglas was hesitant. His argument is if we're going to have fault a team for not winning enough, we ain't rewarding teams that are not dominating supposed to. Key point, he would argue, winning 31 points isn't easy, no matter how they play. They destroyed a team that they should destroy. Seattle destroyed a road game in Pittsburgh. You bump them up. First time, you bump them up to the 6. Your stance was, this is how good teams do.
That's what they do. They're a good team.
But Christopher kept them at 5.
You got to win games, you know?
Agreed that the Seattle was terrible, but didn't want to crown Seattle just yet. The road win and collaborative team, blowout and bad teams, 2 strong win stretch. I agree with Doug. They look solid, but I'm just not ready for the 6 yet. So for all of us in week 3, we decided to go 5, 5, and 6 right over here. We thought this team was settling up, but we didn't think this team could go to the Super Bowl right here. And do you have any thoughts on that one in week 3?
No.
I know. Now we're going to talk about that against
I
the
do
Seattle.
one quick thought. I think I was a little bit higher on Seattle before you gentlemen. Because I don't know, like it felt hard to trust Sam Darnold, but like you could just feel like how good the defense was, and it was fun to see it get better and better as the year went on too.
I mean, week 3, looking at it, Tony Horton, whatever, 95-yard punt return. So, defense, special teams showing up at the right time.
Yeah. And it's, this is like, I feel like this is like the first hump where it's just like, okay, our narrative changes that maybe, okay, the Seattle team could be good. But then they come close in this game. This is the most, Tree talked about, this is the most Seattle Cardinals game in history of a Seattle Cardinals game. Seattle barely moved for the rest of this one. Seattle Card showed up and dressed like tortillas and dressed like raccoons in a salada. Two wins games. But then he got mad at Marvis Harrison Jr. He's like, what the fuck, dude? There's zero chemistry. You hand the ball like it's AMC Gremlins. So how the fuck do you win this game? But he was just like, but then you see Seattle. Why the fuck don't you win 20 minutes ago? Are you programmed to make this game uncomfortably close as a side joke? This is the most pure experience of Seattle Cardinals game imaginable. Embarrassing game for both teams. And people, I don't give Seattle enough respect. Yeah, because why the fuck that?
Hey, that's why they're divisional games. You know, they got to be close and interesting. So,
yes.
And like I always say, a win is a win.
Yes. But interestingly enough, opening joke was like, I'm going to give him the gen because they stuck with Sam Darnold. But, Christopher, you were very much good. You acknowledged the win, acknowledged the division was brutal, stated that Seattle blew it, nearly blew that game. They almost screwed this up. You gave him a 5. You kept it on the 5. NFC is loaded. Division game is ground. but mostly consistency. Douglas's take was Seattle has playoff ingredients, strong run game. Sam Darnold is excellent experience. Mike McDonald's is clearly knowing what he's doing. Defense is elite. His key point, I didn't realize how dominant they were until I watched closely. You also push back on the offensive doubts. Moving on to Gino, moving on to DK. Seattle looks stronger than last year. You kept them in a strong 6 right over here. My turn, I said borderline top 10 quarterbacks right now, but not top 3. He's not elite, but he's solid. Seattle might actually have the right fit. Sam Darnold might not have been the problem in Minnesota. If they win, and I said if they win next week and go 4-11, I'll bump them up to the 6. And Doug's challenge: how are you supposed to rate a team that's actually playing? They're 3-1 right now, and they look like a playoff team right now.
Oh, fair.
And then I said what I said. And that is a beautiful quote. I said what I said right over there. And can you believe it? We talked about that. And then the Patriots got to play a cupcake schedule, which Christopher talked about it. Another cupcake schedule. They got to play against the Carolina Panthers and kicking the absolute shit out of this team, 42-13. Tree talked about the Atlanta Falcons apparently comprehended last week and allowed New England to bulldoze a straight-up Mike Town home across Massachusetts grounds. New England pissed off last week's bullshit and buried the first team and stood in front of them. See, Pats, this is what happens when you don't fumble the ball and let the team win and third fucking play.
You know what's crazy is the Panthers were up 6-0 in this game, but 6-0 off of a touchdown and a missed PAT by Ryan Fitzgerald. And then after that touchdown, the Patriots went on a 42-0 scoring run.
But it's interesting because we were just like, Panthers looked awful. Yes, they looked awful. They should have buried this team, but New England finally did it. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe this team looks so good. Douglas's take on the first. Drake May looks legit. Mike Rabel clearly installed a culture and physicality. The team looks disciplined. Identity is formed. And he said, this isn't prettier, but there's some real improvements. But you bumped them up to the 4. I said the Panthers look bad.
Yeah.
Yes. Said this team is not contenders. Drake May is good, but not elite yet. The Patriots look like a mid-team, but not a bottom feeder. I also corrected Christopher. You gave him a 4 last week. And then I jumped in. I'm not jumping him to the 5, but I feel a 4 right now. And Christopher, you said about their QBRs, 190 yard, 77 completions, 7 TDs in this one. Would you rather have this quarterback or be with 7 TDs and 1 interception and 964 yards? One of them was Drake May. That was A. The other one was Josh Allen. Land hard. And you said you gave him a 5, but then you pushed back. I did it. I'm sorry, Christopher. I told you to push back right over there. And I said next week's Bills game is going to be a real tester on this one.
And so it was.
It is interesting because I feel like in week 4, I feel like we were like, okay, Seattle looks legit. Patriots were still kind of like, we still kind of felt like this point right over here. We were still right over here and just like, And this team.
We're talking about next week, the Bills. The Patriots beat the Bills 23-20. It's ironic that the Seahawks played a divisional team in week 3, and they beat them 23-20. Yeah,
and then
NFL might be rigged.
NFL is definitely rigged, or maybe they just are lazy. Let's be honest. And then week 5, the Seattle Seahawks play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they beat them 38-35. They're winning these games. The failure and wash away force from the 2018 draft class. Baker Mayfield versus Sam Darnold. That is actually kind of a funny narrative because both teams kind of felt like cast-offs, honestly. Baker Mayfield was a cast-off. Drake May was a cast-off right over here. And it was just like, man.
I think that I might have went high on the Bucs since they beat the Seahawks this week. 38-35. What a game.
What a game. This game looked so much good in this one. In this one. But they were looking really good. The Tree was very much optimistic, like get some respect right over here. But he was like, okay, Sam Darnold looks better. The team looks better. They're looking great. But they did win this one. But then we talked about A.J. Brown. Douglas, you gave him up to the 6. You bumped him up. You bumped him back up to that 6 right over here. You were like, okay, that lost, but I feel like this team looks good. Solid, better than expected, didn't play. I acknowledge the talents. Familiar seeing that path, but question whether could they finally do the final bump. This feels like last year Seattle. Good, but they cannot finish. I give them 5. Christopher gave them a 5 also. Felt like they're good, but not ready for the elite teams. And they felt like they were doing okay right over there. And then we got to talk about the Patriots. This is the game where I feel like maybe they can do this. Tree was basically said, Stephon Diggs went on a rampage in this game. Drake May was there. He just not handled it. They win this run over here. The Patriots made the Bills property. I didn't expect Bill Belichick to be out there loud. And the Bills lost this game against the Patriots. This one was the defining. I feel like this is the one game where basically it was like, okay, they beat them 23-20. Maybe the Patriots might be good. Maybe this doesn't feel like a lucky fluke. Cupcake schedules, when people were complaining about the cupcake schedule, this was a decisive good game against a good team, and they won this game on this one. And imagine this was in Buffalo also. So we talked about the Lions. I didn't hesitate. I said rivalry game matters. Home game matters. Drake May looks legitimately impressive. Mike Vrabel is a culture and shows up in the field. I said you beat a team at home. I'll give him credit. So I bumped him up to the 5. Christopher pushed back hard. Said that they didn't win. They didn't win because of with Drake May. Rashawn Stevenson had 2 touchdowns. Patriots are as a good team, but it's not because of May. They carried the team. And acknowledge that it was the 3 losses against the Patriots, and Patriots won. The question is why they're not winning. You kept them at the 4. Douglas's take broke the tie and blew it up. You decided Stephon Diggs looks good. Drake May looks clearly well. The run game looks reliable. Rabel's defense looks legit. This team looks connected. They are 3-2. They are definitely looking like they're starting today. Likely a 7 seed. And just beating Douglas' words, the best team in the NFL. You bumped them up to the 6. This is the first time you said this team looks legit. I feel like this team's a playoff team.
I saw it early, gentlemen. Doug
You saw it early. I
should have given him the 9 right there.
You should have gave him the 9 right there. You bumped him up, but you even joked out, might bump up the Patriots to a 7, but I'm going to just drop them because of the Bills right over there. But I feel like this is the one where I'm just like, okay, this team looks legit. This team looks like it's going to do well. This team looks like it's going to places. I feel like this is when the change of the narrative of this team to being like a mid-team to being like okay, this could be a legit team. And then they got another cupcake schedule. The Patriots beat the New Orleans Saints. Tree talked about they played hard but didn't play their opponent was slightly better. The New England Patriots are ending the irrelevant. This is the case indifferent of Drake May. And they talked about, honestly, it should have been more impressed. Rabel decided to interfere with the passing game. And how the fuck do you have interference called by Stephon Diggs? The Zebras must have an action against the Saints. Just like the Lions do, right, Douglas? You like Zebras, right? Drake May looked simply strong, but the Saints looked simply weak. And he was very impressed on this one. Interestingly enough, we were like, Douglas, they're 4-6. They look strong. Sitting on the 4 seed. Technically could be the Bills want the division. Bye. I'm back, baby. That's the meme energy. You said Mike Vrabel looks legit. Stephon Diggs looked like that. Drake May looks like the truth. You said they are a playoff team, just not a Super Bowl team, Douglas.
Oh no.
But then I was like, yes. The Bills' loss might not be fluky. Yes, Josh Allen still looks nuclear. But I was like, but looking the head-to-head, Patriots could beat Buffalo head-to-head. And they look like a 4-2. They're winning this game no matter. I think I can bump them up to 7, but just not yet. I bumped them up to the 6. And Christopher, you were the biggest bump up. You said this team looks right now, earning their jump, drawing the front lines. If Buffalo played like like in the playoffs. I still think Buffalo wins. But you gave the Patriots all 6s. This is when we all gave them all 6s right there. We saw the turnaround. We saw the greatness right over here. And we saw what is going to happen on this one. And then we saw Seattle play against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 6. We saw, the Seattle Seahawks look happier. They're taking advantage. They even have – Seattle never looks threatening. They were talking about Trevor Lawrence. Discipline, gross. And then they were talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Offense, straight up a mess. Defense can't do it. Meanwhile, Seattle just straight up packed. No turnovers. Controlled the ball. Did what necessary. They were 1-12 in a disaster of alarm. A shaky 44-2, but a strong opponents. Firmly placed in the second tier of the NFL. If Sam Darnold keeps throwing dimes like this, they would be lucky. He would be looking in January. Not saying Super Bowl, but something. Please, and he said, please, for the love of God, fix the third downs.
You know what's crazy is that was the first home loss for the Jaguars. I know the season was early, but that was Jaguars' fourth home game. They went 3-1, and at that time, Seattle was undefeated on the season. But man, JSN another 100 yard receiving game. He was at 162 on the game, so that's crazy.
Yes, and we felt like super optimistic on this team. We were very much on all this team. We were like, man, this team is looking like maybe this team is actually looking legit. I actually was very much optimistic. And we gave, I'm just going to looking at my notes right over here. We gave the Seattle all 6s, I believe. The average right over here on the Seahawks right over here. I'm actually going to look it up because, like I said, this is how I am a casual sports talk podcast.
We gave the Patriots all 6s through week 5, and then we gave the Seahawks all 6s through week 6. Wow, man, we're
actually we gave them up, we bumped them up. We were like we basically gave them all 7s. We thought this team could look legit on this one, and then we're going to go to the next one. We're going to talk about another cupcake schedule where the Patriots had to play against the Tennessee Titans, who are straight up dog shit. Let's be honest. They were.
Oh, you don't even want to talk about the Saints in week 6? All right, yeah, screw the Saints.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we gave them the 1. We thought the Saints were kind of bad. Let's be honest. We gave the Saints. Yeah, we were kind of like, We were like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about the Saints.
Sorry, they didn't go marching in that week. They lost.
They won that game. It was an easy game, decisive, like okay game. We pretty much were still keeping the 7s on this one. I felt like we were doing okay on that one on our prediction. So yeah, we can skip that one. We're going to go to week 7 right over here. Yes, I did screw that up. Sorry about this, gentlemen.
It's all right. You know what I find weird? We not weird, but within the first 6 weeks, both these teams played 2 of the same teams. They both played the Saints, non-divisional, and they both played the Steelers, non-divisional. So I wonder, like maybe next year if there's a trend like that, see what playoff contenders have played both the same opponent, two of the same opponents in the first 6 weeks. Like, okay, there's my Super Bowl matchup.
It's a Super Bowl matchup we had indeed, and now we had the Tennessee Titans just like curb stomp them right there. And yes, former head coach, basically Mike Rabel gets his revenge game, and he's immediately ignore the reasons why Mike Rabel got fired. But I was still hoping that Callahan could crush him, but he did say he was a hack. We were settling on Drake May, settling on this one, causing alarms, doing this one. He's one upping Tom Brady right over here. He's looking great. He's looking amazing. Meanwhile, New England is dragging the antidote chair on the second half. Titans are looking amazing. And we were very much like optimistic. They went 4-0 on the road. I felt like this team was looking good. I gave them up to the 7. Douglas said, I was with you. This doesn't feel fluky anymore. Coaching, identity, physically, all there. Jake May looks legit. Stephon Diggs is looking amazing. Defense looks Development. Vrabel's the right guy. And you
Oh,
gave him 7. Christopher, you said some, yes. Some of the balances, but in some different ways. Defense is forcing mistakes. I can't call the Brady year until a January win, but you also gave him a 7 also on this one. And then next, we got to week 7, where it was the night game. The Saturday game. No, it was actually the Sunday game. The Monday game, actually, where they played against the Seahawks, where the Seahawks got to play against the Houston Texans. They said they win, but yikes. This team is looking good. Certainly not a blowout, but they did look good. Takeaway, tree line. I would have taken a Herculean effort to lose this game. Was very much concisive. This is when Seattle goes 5-2. We were bumping. I bumped them up to the 7. I said Sam Darnold looks legit. I said we talked about it. They're facing against the Eagles. We thought we were doing good right over here. They thought that this team could be heading to the promised land right over here in all glory and greatness.
This is against the Texans, right? Because, man, after this game, the loss to the Seahawks, the Texans on the season, after that Seahawks loss, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-1. So the Texans really had a turning tide after the Seahawks loss.
Yes. So we all gave him 7s right there. Final count was all 7s. We thought like this could be, we could talk about all that. And that is it for this week, right over here. And now we're into week 8, right? This was when the Patriots played against the Cleveland Browns. And Tree talked about a lot of this when they said this wasn't fluke. He talked about the proven demise of exaggerated. Drake May is getting powers and consuming of the defenses everywhere. He's surely Tong. It is simply Cleveland being Cleveland. Offense just was a huge fluke. New England wiped the floor in a strong, well performance right over there. It was clearly that way right over here. New England was looking good in this one.
Yeah, I mean, before the season, I thought this was going to be one of the Browns' wins because obviously Drake May coming into the season, we weren't really too confident, so I thought the Browns were going to be able to win this game. But yeah, Dylan Gabriel with the old Cleveland Browns, two interceptions. I think he averaged 1 interception per week. But yeah, like you said, Stu, the Patriots really cleaned our clocks, and hats off to the Pats.
Yes, hats off to the Pats right over here. And they were looking good. I feel like we all gave them 7s. We were all feeling confident. I felt like that this was like the momentum. Douglas was feeling like this team looks legit. A good win against an ugly team, but a bad team was doing good. That was the quote from Douglas right over there. You were like a poet and you didn't even know it, Douglas.
gosh darn right, Stu. I'll be writing scriptures over here.
You said he was promising a good rookie, steady game, legit.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I will say Seattle also had the bye, so we don't stop us yet.
Heck yeah, we can keep it rolling.
We're gonna keep it goddamn rolling indeed. And this is the halfway point. We got to the halfway point right here. Week another motherfucking 9. And this is when the Seattle Seahawks had to play against the Commanders. We thought this could have been a good game, but apparently the Washington Commanders looks like shit. Best performance of the season.
Game that Mr. Jane Daniels got injured.
I believe Jaden Daniels gets annihilated. Yeah, this is the game where they put Jaden Daniels in the game and then he gets hurt, right?
Yeah, this is the game he got injured. Throw some salt in that wound. This is where he gets annihilated. Okay,
he gets annihilated. JSN just looks amazing. Sam Darnold's redemption arc. That's what Tree opens here. He was too harsh on Sam Darnold before. On this one, Jackson Sitman.
Sam Darnold, 4 touchdowns, 330 passing yards, another 100+ receiving game for Mr. JSN with 129. Man, crazy.
Well, I saw a stat that Sam Darnold was second in QBR in the NFL in weeks 1 through 8 and like 27th in weeks 9 through 18. But their defense just kept getting better, so it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. But you also said, and I loved your take, you said Seattle are a legit problem, and nobody should want to be them in January. You were right there. You said defense looks legit, offense looks legit, coaching amazing, depth amazing. This is the smoke and mirrors right over here. Defenses win championship. Mike knows what he's doing. Christopher, you felt like you were very much good. You gave him the 7, but not yet an 8. And the same for us and Christopher and Douglas and me. You felt like staying right over there. You had one quote right over here. You said he spreads the ball around, but just not into one guy, and that's amazing. We'll see how he survives in January right there.
Yeah.
That one. And then the Patriots had to play against the Tampa Bay. No, they actually got to play against the Falcons. I actually forgot about it. This one was a close game. It was against the Falcons. This one was the nail biter right over here. If you remember this game right over here, it was super close. They almost lost this game, but then the Falcons made a missed kick for the extra point and lost the game because of that.
Yeah, they missed a PAT. Oh,
They missed the PAT on that one, and that kind of ruined that one for the.
It would have been great, hypothetically, if the PAT would have been successful. Game tied at 24-24, 4 minutes to go in the game. See if Drake May could have had a fourth quarter comeback. Well, I don't know what comeback if you're tied, but a fourth quarter drive to drive it down and win the game. But you don't need it when you're up 24-23 with 4 minutes to go in the game.
But Douglas was actually bumping them up. He thought, like, you know what? This team looks legit. They could look Super Bowl. They could be really good contenders. And they could be great right over here. And he thought like this was great. And then also this was when my insanity went crazy because I did 3.5 hours at this point. doing the whole thing at this point. I did this at like 11:30 in the bed. Fun fact, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the crime still.
Yes. I grinded this game. You told me I got to get this done tomorrow. I was like, I'll get this done. And then Tree's thoughts about it. They played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat the Buccaneers right over there. This is when Tampa is one hurt Florida right over here. This doesn't feel real. Buccaneers' biggest issue, implosion. New England always seems one step ahead. Travion Henderson's touchdowns, and that is that. Remember the Patriots. Remember when Henderson the ball? Good things happen. Keep doing it. This isn't luck. This isn't fluky. This is control. Buffalo's continuing dripping further and further away in the view. Time to appear a flat circle. Patriots are looming to the NFC once again. The evil empire is back.
Who's it? This is from Tree?
This is from Tree.
Nice.
I mean, this is a very, very Christopher's take right over here. You gave him a 7 last week. You said this after this win, confident at 8. Drake May is the true MVP of the sports books. DraftKings, FanDuel, everything. He's the true MVP frontrunner. And you're not pretending anymore. It's not just winning. You had a good quote. You have to be the MVP if you had to be the best team in the league. Douglas, you said it was no longer fluky. You felt like this team is looking good. You felt like this team is looking legit. You justified it right over here. You said that this team is overhyped. You had a great team. They are something special. It doesn't feel fluky anymore. I love that quote right there. And in my take, don't count me in. But the Patriots are making the right move. The evil umpire isn't back. It's rebuilding. It just feels like it's working. It's disciplined. It's winning. They're looking good. Also, I think we were also kind of hyped up because it's like, okay, this is looking like this is the team right over here. And I think we all gave the Patriots all 8s at this point. We were like, we justified it right over here in this one. And then week 10 happens. Tree's thoughts right over here. They beat the living shit out of the Cardinals right over here. It was just like, you know what? You barely lost this game. Don't worry, Seattle. I will beat the shit out of this team. And he said, don't call the no fun league for nothing, especially if you're Arizona. This wasn't a football game. It was an absolute annihilation. It was Geneva Convention genocide against the Cardinals right over there. Before the game was finished up, I finished reverse beer. It was 35-0, and officially was over. Sam Darnold looked legit.
35-0 going in the second quarter. 2 of those touchdowns were from their defense, fumble recoveries. So yeah, back to the main point that Doug has brought up. Yeah, the defense looking very hard and difficult to get around.
Yes. And then we're jumping this team to the 8. We were like, Sam Darnold officially is broken. It's not fluky label. He's praised. He's amazing. He's looking great. We're thinking that this team could be amazing right over here. We were deciding because it could have been Philly versus Seattle, and we were thinking, man, this might be the team. This could be the team. Seattle could beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They're looking legit. They're earning that 8 right over here. We all gave them 8s in this one. And now we're in week 11. They got to play against their little brother, the New York Jets, the New England Patriots. Get to bitch slap their little brother as always. Over 25 years ago, and he talked about it, Bill Belichick left the Jets with a paper napkin and proceeded to spread decades of humiliate him. It's just like Bill Belichick never left. The Jets looks like shit. Jake May didn't go nuclear at this point, but he looked like he wasn't doing bad. He was doing good. He was ready in the field. It wasn't just smart QB play right over here in week 12. Week 11, I should say. And we were very much doing good. Stephon Diggs looked really good. The Jets looked like dog shit, as always. But after this week, we all hold. We were all in congruence. We were pretty much all in the 8. We were thinking 9-2. We felt like we were doing good. The Patriots didn't prove something new. They just confirmed that they already knew in this one. And we felt like we were very much good in this one. It's kind of interesting that we didn't that you were not, Douglas, you were not saying any takes about any of this so far. So you gave him an 8 last week, you gave him an 8 this week, and you felt like you were doing good right over here. You felt like it was going as well as possible right over here.
I do agree. Stu, could you look at your phone really quick?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to go as quickly as possible. Tree thought about this one. Seattle versus this game right over here, 29-19. They lose to the Rams. This one was very much going right over here. Stafford looked a lot better. This is the first game when literally they got to play against the Seattle Seahawks right over here. And we're talking about all this takes right over here. I had an honest, this was kind of okay, they're a little bit lost. They didn't look as great. They kind of had the first quarter right over here. And we kind of felt is this back to the same Darnold of the older year? Is this one right over here? I think Jared Goff is pressured right here and practicing right there. Last week we all said, we actually gave him a 7 right over here. Douglas gave him a 7. Christopher gave him a 7 right over here. Yes. We all gave him the 7s right over here. And then the Patriots gave him to this one. They got to play against the Bengals right over here. And
wait, did we just talk about the Rams game against the
Yes,
Seahawks?
I'm trying to go as quickly as possible.
Oh, I mean,
they lost.
All right. I was going to bring
I'm sorry,
up the
you guys. You said look at the clock.
No, you're fine, Stu. I was just saying, the Seahawks finished 8-1 on the season on the road, and this was their first road loss to the Rams. So
yes, yeah, this is their first road loss right over here, and I just kind of felt like this one right over here. And then the Patriots got to play against the Bengals right over here. It was kind of close. They beat them 21-16. Drake May did okay. Tree's cake. Drake May looks pick sixes. New England stageable. This is more like Cincinnati kind of blew this game because they looked really bad. And this is when Mr. Flacco was right over there. So we're kind of Ohio State, New England was not winning at the ceiling and the scary part right over there. Patriots rating, we're still an 8. We were very much still felt like this team could be still good. It was 2 games, basically. There was the Bills and the Ravens. And our final take was basically, we felt like this team is looking legit and great. And we kept them at an 8 on this one. And then we had this other game right over here. We had the Seattle, let me check. This is week 12, right? If I remember, yes, this was week 12. And we got to talk about the other team in week 12. We had the Seattle Seahawks had to play against the Tennessee Titans. This one was a closer game. Kind of felt like a bouncy game. It was not really that great, 30-24. But we kind of felt like this team could be legit. We kind of felt like this team was doing okay. They kind of didn't slide a little bit back. Seattle, they're clearly a playoff team, clearly dangerous, clearly flawless, but a win's a win. Final result, we all gave them 7s. You felt like 8 teams. You kind of were We thought like the Rams could be better. We thought this other team was going to be better. We were thinking about it. Christopher was even saying right over there, verdict, we all gave him down to the 7 for right now. And then we talked about the Sam Darnold revenge game in week 13, where Sam Darnold absolutely kicked the shit out of the team that just bounced him out 26-0. It was a massacre of Vikings. It was just like action game, forced 5 turnovers, dominating the defense. The defense was looking right there. Sam Darnold needed to not go nuclear, and he just did good. Minnesota, and honestly not far. Minnesota was not a room disaster. That is it. That's the bottom line. Right over here. Sam Darnold's ankle. They were looking good. We were still kind of like in this like thing. Like we still gave them the 7s. But yeah, they're an 8. But then we hesitated when we decided this team looks like they're an 8. They kicked the shit out of the Vikings. Seattle just needed the win. They erased Minnesota off the field. They are the real contenders in the Super Bowl team right over here. Christopher kept them in a 7. Douglas kept them in an 8. You said the most 2 capable teams in the NFC. I like them a lot, Christopher said, but there's 2 or 3 teams that I can put higher. And I give them an 8. I said I do think it's the best team in the NFC Championship. In the Sam Darnold revenge game right over here. But then the Patriots got to kick the shit out of another team that was really shitty. The New York Giants. They beat them up 33-25. Drake May was effective turnover. Only 1 turnover was positive right over here. Was looking legit. The pod consensus, we steadied at the 8. We felt like this one, yeah, it's the Giants, but they're contenders, so don't apologize, blowout. Just cash them out. And we felt like that this team could be right over here and legit right over there. And then we got to week 13. Or did we get to – no, we actually got to week 14. I'm going delirious right now. That's okay in this podcast.
I'm liking the pacing, too. This is a good summaries. I'm digging it.
Yes. We're doing the summaries right over here. One-liners right here. The Seattle Seahawks kicked the shit out of the Atlanta Falcons. It's a shitty Atlanta Falcons team, let's be honest. Trees ran. Rashawn Merch was never the answer. There was just more like collapsing. Seattle punishes bad coaches, and that is true. We felt like one line. We felt like this team was looking good. We felt like right over there on this one. And we felt like this team was good. We felt like this was not fluky. We felt like this team is coming close. I'm sticking with the 8. They look legit. Douglas says, I'm with you. They're dominant. They're invisible. They're looking right here. And you gave them an 8 also. And Christopher said, same here. You gave him an 8. You felt like this team was looking good. Seattle was thoroughly in the team. They're dangerous. Well-coached, well-performed games right over here. And this is also the Patriots bye week. So we don't need to talk about anything because it's the bye week. And then we're at week 15 because we're ready for delirium. Because then the Buffalo Bills beat the Patriots. What happened? What's the turning
point? That was a great game. I think the Patriots are up they're up 21-0, I think, and the Bills made an epic comeback on them.
They did come an epic comeback, and it was like we slightly had to drop it. We were like, I don't know. Like we kind of felt like, I don't know, can they beat the Bills? We got it strongly to 7. It's not a collapse, but we're kind of a little bit worried. They didn't lose in the frauds, but we did think they were going to win the division. We did think we were still like in this very much good take right over here. But our take was this was a bad loss. I said it. How do you come in line? Patriots came up 21-0 in the first quarter. If it starts snow, Josh Allen wins games.
Yeah, I remember this because it was a snow-filled game. And, yeah, the Patriots were up 21-0. And then, yeah, we mentioned it. Yeah, Josh Allen in the snow is unstoppable.
Yeah, but I think the reason we're so optimistic still is like the Bills are still a couple of games behind and lost a lot of tiebreakers. So it's like, well, the Patriots would still have home field, which might be a big factor here.
Yes. And Chris's take, we're dropped them down to 7. I dropped them down to Douglas kept them at the 8. The schedule helps them New England this year. Momentum helps them right over here. You felt like, that they're not an 8 right now. You said it like you thought they could be good, but you kind of bumped them down to the 8. Then,
well, I thought too. I thought the Bills felt fluky, like they were going to lose one, like they did. Like they just didn't feel as good as they have in years past. I think too, which helped.
Yes, and then week 16, the Seattle Seahawks played against the Indianapolis Colts, and this is when They're barely basically doing this. Indianapolis did a literal Hail Mary revenge. This is when Phillip Rivers started out. Like Seattle just did enough. They didn't dominate. They didn't fluke. They just composed, and that's matter. Like, unfortunately, the Tree had a great quote. If the Colts were like the Titanic, Seattle just happened to be the iceberg that scrapped past. And yeah, this is kind of like when the Colts were about to collapse at this point. We all hold Seattle at the 8. We said we didn't move them up. We didn't think them. They said we said, but we were worried about this tough division. We were like, can they beat this? They're currently in the 5th seed right now. Christopher said he can easily bump them up to the 8. Douglas said, whenever Thursday night wins, probably going to give me a 9. And I said, I acknowledged it. I said the final call is an 8 on this one.
Yeah. Well, because, I think we're going into that Rams game then, which is perfect because that's exactly what happened. And that's
Yes. In week 16, the Rams, they were behind 16 points against the Rams. They were doing okay. And then they came back. And they felt like that this one was basically going good. And the golden chance is right over here. But they blew this game. Seattle was down 16. They should have lost this game. But then they come back. And then they just dive into the greatness. And then win in this one.
Yeah, this was a heck of a game. I remember the tight end, not Barner, but the other tight end. He was wide open, just in the middle of the end zone. That's what they gave him the conversion. That was an overtime. Yeah, so either that you tie it or you win it. And yeah, Seattle won it. Good for them.
Yeah, and Jack Summerlin, they did the 2-point conversion, and they didn't make the 2-point conversion. And their bottom line, it's not implosion. It's just Seahawks imploding at MSC. I gave him an 8. Christopher gave him an 8. Christopher gave him a 9. Douglas gave him a 9 also, and I was the only one that was given an 8. We felt like this team, if Sam Darnold doesn't implode, Seahawks might be impeccable in the NFC. But then, week 16, the New England Patriots play against the Baltimore Ravens, 28-24. Drake May was looking amazing. Tree's comments, they went nuclear. The themes is nuclear. They felt like Drake May's real. Arm talent, poise, arrogant, aggression. The Patriots don't panic. They're trailing. They don't punish mistakes. They're eliminated. The Patriots are back. Evil Empire is back. And we gave them actually 7s, actually, funny enough. We gave them triple 7s. We said we wasn't hating them, but we're massive skepticism. We felt like there was some sussiness. I think this is like a point where I was just like, I don't know. The Patriots are they're okay, but I don't know if they can do it. The soft schedule, Douglas. You were starting to say the soft schedule. They're winning them. But I feel like in hindsight, I will say, Douglas, I think it's not really the soft schedule. It's more a lot of teams that they should have probably were better, like imploded. Also, that probably didn't help.
Well, yeah, I mean, going into the season, it didn't look as soft as it ended up being. But, I mean, they quite literally, statistically, it was like a top 10, some had as high as like a top 3 easiest schedule in NFL history.
Yeah, and I think that's more my take. I don't think it was a soft schedule. It was more like these teams that should have been good, they kind of imploded on that one. But
yeah, I mean, to their credit, they still took care of business, got the 2 seed. Obviously, they're in the Super Bowl, so what do I know?
Yeah, we're going to see how it goes right over there. And playoff participation, one team, probably the best team, and that is it. Easy 7s right over here. Triple 7s indeed. And week 17, Seattle versus the Panthers, 27-10. They beat them. It was pretty much Seattle was chasing for that number 1 seed. That was their one goal. The narratives, Carolina was not outplayed. Seattle just knows what to do. They get it there. Defense was a real star. Bryce Young wasn't failing. The offense was looking amazing. We were still continuing the 8. I said I love Seattle, what it's doing. But and there were more data points. Bottom line, I kept them up to the 8. Christopher gave him the 9, said this is the most consistent team in the NFC of all season right there. And Douglas said, I'm picking the NFC right now. It's Seattle. The defense looks elite. Offense looks elite. And that is the verdict over there. And then we go to week 17. They play against the Jets, the little brother again, 42-10, undermining the assignment. They suck. He had a joke. It's like a corn star tanking a draft pick for the name of great justice. New York fucking sucks. But it was like New England Sam trolling Mike Rabel, calling timeouts, and make the Jets run another play. That is fair. And Aaron Glenn's first. It was just a troll game. And are you fucking kidding me? on that point. Douglas actually landed them up to the 8. You felt like this team looks legit. Me, I gave him a 7. Christopher gave him a 7. We were sticking to that 7. We felt like this team was looking good. You know, and then the Patriots got to play against the Bills. Yeah, they beat the Bills 23 earlier this year. But can they do it? We were kind of in this discussion of like, can they do this? Can they beat the Bills? Can they do this? And then we got to talk about the final week, which is week 18. Seattle plays against the 49ers. This was the winner take all. This was going to be who gets the number 1 seed. Who does it? You know, who will take that spot? The winner takes all right over here. And it was the San Francisco 49ers, 13-3. Granted, the 49ers were all injured, all hell. And Tree said, good fucking night. Seattle dreads San Francisco for anything. It's a statement of a statement in hostile territory. They defeated this hydroplane. They looked good. They looked legit. They looked like amazing.
I did.
And then basically not much in the Miami-Pittsburgh game. I mean, they won this game. Actually funny, Troy Aikman was going to consult this game right over here. This was the Mike McDaniel. Drake May looked slide, so copied off to NFC. Looked performative. That was pretty much there. Patriots get the 2nd seed. The Seahawks get the bye. And Tree said the evil empire's dead. Long live the First Order. The chaos of AFC is coming. Drake May is salvation and won't suffer long enough. Travion Henderson, Stephon Diggs. Also, yeah, this was a couple weeks ago when week 16 when Stephon Diggs got in trouble for assaulting his assistant. Could have been mistress also. I'm just saying on that one, but we were very much positive. But then we talked about the Patriots-Chargers game, and we were very much like in this game. We were like, we rate them all 7s. We thought we could beat the Chargers. The Chargers were all injured at hell. We were like flabbergasted right there, handled the pressure, and we were very skeptical in the Chargers. And guess what? They beat the Patriots. The Patriots beat the Chargers. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then the bye week was right over here. They talked about Tree talked about the JSN. They want to play this week. Honestly, who needs them? They look legit. They look solid. They are looking like this is the team that could be there. Legion of Boom hasn't come back. They're evolving. It's the Legion of Doom. Welcome to hell. Seattle defense is a master of cremations. JSN looks like a complete beast. DK who? Good luck on the secondary standings right over there. Mike McDaniel's reopening. And they are looking legit. Don't let them play against the Rams. That was the one thing that we were a little bit nervous about Sam Darnold right over here. And that was pretty much it. And then the Patriots won. It was 16-23. I mean, it was 16-3. They pretty much did good. It was more because of the injuries of the Chargers, but the Drake May looked amazing. Turnovers overcome. They looked like they were controlling that game. Funny enough, the Tree picked the Seahawks to make it to the Super Bowl with the Jaguars. So funny enough, in the divisional round, we all gave him 8s. Christopher gave an 8. I gave him a 9. And Douglas gave a 9, and you felt like this team looks legit. We talked about the injuries were probably going to be like that one. I was kind of a little bit nervous about like, hey, could the Bears do well? Could the Rams do well? I was not hesitant on that one. And then they pretty much annihilated this game. They were pretty much in this divisional round. They just kicked the shit out of them. Texans won was very interesting. I actually gave the Texans the win. I believe it was Douglas and Christopher. You picked the Patriots to win this one, but you were a little bit nervous about soft schedules. They have a soft schedule. Can they do it? Can they get this? Can they do well? But then Seattle.
Thankfully for them, they played C.J. Stroud, who threw like 5 interceptions. So
yeah, that did not help right there. And then, Seattle.
I mentioned that on the podcast when we talked about this game. Is the only person that could make the Texans defense lose a game is C.J. Stroud. And sure enough, there we go.
Yes. But then Seattle beats 6 out of San Francisco. Not surprised. The team was injured to all hell, let's be honest. And the injuries got up to him, and that's all. And New England got to play against the Houston Texans 28-16. They looked good. Different reasons. They looked dominant. Not validation. Defense, real spread, real physicality, reputation right over here. I think honestly it was more like Texans kind of also look bad, but the Patriots actually beat a good defense. I think this was the one where Douglas, we're talking about New England has never played against a good team, never beaten a good team, soft schedule. And this one was actually a good bump up. Silence was everything.
I mean, no Nico Collins, no Dalton Schultz, no Blizzard. But, like,
Yeah.
they did, in fact, win by double digits, though, so you can't fault them.
Yeah, you can't fault them. We were basically like, we all picked the Patriots to win this one against the Denver Broncos. We felt like, Drake May is going to look good. Playoffs is looking good. I think they're all going to good. They're going to win this game.
Plus, I mean, no Bo Nix with the Broncos. He's out for the season.
Yeah, I think the no Bo Nix was like not helpful.
That was the deciding factor right there.
And then we felt like Seattle versus the Rams. We were like, this looks like our Super Bowl teams. This could be our two competitive teams. Fairly enough. If Sam Darnold doesn't Sam Darnold, Seattle wins. That was my quote right there. And the formulaic, we all picked Seattle right over here. And in the reality, both teams made it, and they win. So here we are, the two matchups right over here. And we're going to talk about the quick narratives right over here for Seattle. One team, it's redemption. It's 2014. It's the 1 yard pass. Last Super Bowl they remember was 1 yard pass and an interception against the Patriots. If you're a Seattle fan, you want one thing: revenge. Revenge for that game. Revenge for letting the Patriots dynasty commence. You do not want that. Is your Seattle. You want to destroy the evil empire. You want to be right over here and back to glory and greatness, to take out the Patriots, because that is probably the one game that haunts Seattle fans. If you want to trigger Seattle fans, Super Bowl, that pass, 100%.
That's probably fair.
Because, like I said, it could have been their dynasty. It could have been their legacy. They could have been the 2010s. It could have been Seattle. But it was the Patriots. And then I would say there's also a legacy of Sam Darnold. It is redemption. It is the story of a guy who was a cast-off for the Jets, a cast-off to the Panthers. People thought his career was washed. His career was done. It was over. And now he can get something that he can gloat, to be like, you know what? I get my glory and great. I get to finally be a starter. It is crazy to think this is the first year, besides the Jets and all that stuff, that he does not become the starter right over here, where he becomes the starter and be glory and greatness. And then we got Mike Rabel, his revenge, his story. Felt like a cast-off, felt like the rise of the empire. No Brady, no Belichick, no nothing. Drake May wants to do something that he has never had. He arrives, he comes, and he wins the Super Bowl. He wants to bring back the glory and greatness of the evil empire of the New England Patriots.
Well, I mean, if this is year 2 of his time, he very well might be on his way.
Yes. He wants to bring back, he's the new elite quarterbacks. He wants to bring out the new things. Forget the Holmes. He wants to be the Hydra 3. He wants to be the even bigger Hydra.
I have a question. Jerry Jones wants to, retire as having most Super Bowl championships. How do you feel about that if the Patriots win another one? Then Robert Kraft has 7 to his 3. Can he do it? Can Jerry Jones retire as the all-time leader of Super Bowl victories?
Yeah, can Raymond Dakota Prescott actually perform well? I mean, he always performs well.
Why do we got to do Raymond Dakota Prescott on this one? We're talking about the Contenders.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So you're right. Our apologies. We wouldn't want to put the Cowboys in that category.
Boo you!
Nope, sorry.
Boo. But so I feel like this is going to be an interesting narrative. One story wants to bring back the glory and greatness of the past, and another one wants to get revenge, wants to get a redemption, wants to be not as a cast-off. People thought Sam Darnold was a cast-off.
That's fair, Stu. And I'm a fan of revenge in this one. Give me the birds, man. Give me them birds.
Yes, you're going birds. But anyway,
even though hopefully the Patriots fans travel well, this game's in California where the 49ers play. Like I mentioned last week on the podcast, they're both on the West Coast. I feel like there might be more Seahawks fans than Patriots fans. So it might be almost like a home game for the Seahawks.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes in this one. And look at that, gentlemen. That is the Contender series right there. And look at that. We didn't even have any arguments, Douglas.
You know, Stu, when you're not randomly defending the Chiefs for no particular reason, we don't have to.
We won't have
Your
arguments about
hatred
that.
for the Eagles came through strong last year.
Yes, the Eagles came strong this week. But that is it for this week. Next week, we'll do our final stock options for the regular season. We'll talk about the two eulogies, the Broncos and the Rams. We'll talk about who we're going to pick to win the Super Bowl. And finally, we're going to discuss all that and more on the Casual Sports Podcast. So as always, gentlemen, do you have any final thoughts?
Nope.
Can't wait till next week.
Can't wait till next week indeed. And as always, gentlemen, I'm going to catch you later, Mr. Gator. As always, take care. Bye-bye.